Well, yeah, and the other thing to bring up as far as like how out of touch I think Adam Silver is okay, we just watched Bad Bunny bring the house down. He's the number one streaming artist in the world. He played at the halftime of the Super Bowl. Got super high ratings. NBA All-Star game, we're getting ludicrous. I mean, come on, man. I mean, no offense, but he hasn't been relevant for like 20 years. They couldn't, I mean, they should have, I mean, Clips is right there, there are so many other artists. There are so many other people who are very popular. It just seems like it's entertainment being run by someone who's woefully out of touch with the modern day
I think
person.
if you look at teenagers and the production that they've had in the NBA, Cooper Flagg is right up there at the tippy top of the pile, maybe the best we've seen in terms of the sample size we've seen of their games as a teenager and the actual production itself. And now we're at that point. He has that 30-point game streak that's been going, one of the longest we've seen in rookie history. So he's figured things out on the offensive side of the ball in the NBA too, which was kind of the concern when he was first starting this season. He's already figured that out, and he's going to continue to get better. He may be a better player than Luka when it's all said and done. And I think that is something that even approaching the draft and even at the start of the season, you would be laughed at if you had brought up that point. But I think he's shown it now that I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the potential is there. I could see it, of course, barring, health and those kinds of circumstances. But just if he's able to play, he may have a better career than it. Like, I think the coolest thing I heard was like the Harpers having a team that's a 3-point contest. Yeah, that's cool. Everyone likes, the money ball and all that stuff. But man, just overall, like big snooze for me, and I don't want to have to do research to understand like what the rules are in the All-Star game. I don't know. It sounds like maybe a hot take or something like that, but
No, you're right.
I think there is a point where, okay, we're like really overanalyzing and overthinking this. Like, can we please just make this fun? And can we please also on the player side just have a genuine want to participate in this, which is also like why this format keeps changing over time. And again, stronger direction, stronger leadership, I think solves a lot of things that
Hi everyone, Tim Kitzer with you, the voice of NBA Jam. From top journalists and authors to rising influencers and insiders, Hoopsology brings you the voices driving basketball forward. With elite guests and sharp analysis, Matt, Justin, and Alan keep you plugged into everything hoops. From downtown, boom shakalaka.
Welcome to another episode of In the Lab with Hoopsology. I am your host, Justin Goodrum, joined by Matt Thomas and Alan Munzler. What's going on, fellas? We'll start with Alan. How are you, Alan?
Hey, I'm doing well, fighting some allergies, so you're going to hear some B's instead of D's when I speak, but it's all good.
Awesome. I'm doing well as well. Good to be back with you guys. It feels like it's been an eternity. It hasn't been actually that long, but we've got a lot to catch up on today, I know, and I'm excited to do that. Wanted to tell you guys in terms of recent basketball events in my personal life, I went to the Lobo Boise State game this past weekend.
Oh, cool.
Where the Lobos were vanquished. Actually, a lot easier than the score would indicate. It was 90-91. And man, it was a great performance, but a lot of missed free throws and some mistakes at the end. The Lobos really should have taken care of business at the pit against Boise State, but credit to Boise State. It felt like they were not going to miss any of the three-pointers that they took. They shot the ball a lot better than the Lobos and then had more free throws and did much better from the stripe than the Lobos. So credit to the Broncos there, but Lobos having a great season, thankfully, and fun to see the pit at like over 14,000 fans again.
Their social media team has been fantastic. I mean, I could be tripping, and based on previous years, but this year, they have been awesome, along with just, I don't know what team you would call it, but the organizers of like the retro night, I'm not sure if you guys saw that, where they threw it back like to the 90s. They had like a full room
that was
full
cool.
of like old school Lobos gear. They wore old school Lobos jerseys, the fonts, everything was like classic Lobos. I just think just the marketing of both the basketball team and the football team happened great. So I think that's been desperately needed, and I think they've jumped into what other schools are doing around the country. So I think I've been very impressed with what I've seen from them. So,
and for those of you who don't watch virtually insignificant basketball. That's
Right.
the University of New Mexico Lobos in the struggling Mountain West Conference. But I digress. Justin, how are you doing, man?
Doing good. Just battling a cold, but tried. I'm glad to be out of it. It's Valentine's Day weekend. Also, it's All-Star weekend, so just right on time to kind of kick this sickness and enjoy Valentine's Day as well as just a little bit of All-Star weekend, I guess. But we'll get into that later on. Appreciate you guys spending the time with us. Just a housekeeping notes. Try not to keep this too long. Please email us at hoopsologypod@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, guest suggestions. On our channel right now, we have several interviews covering the Charlotte Hornets, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Las Vegas Aces, the Dallas Mavericks, the Washington Wizards, the Orlando Magic. We're going to have an interview coming up next week about the ABA, the American Basketball Association. That documentary is narrated by the rapper Common. That's on Prime Video. So go check that out. And that interview will be up next week with the director of that documentary. So we have a lot of great stuff coming in the pipeline. So please stay tuned to our YouTube channel, also Spotify and Apple Podcast. All right. So enough with the housekeeping. Let's jump into our topics for this evening. And just a couple of news items I want to get your guys' feedback on. And that's first what we've been talking about ever since really the Luka trade. And that is based on a report from Mark Stein from the Stein Line. This is from him. An unidentified Dallas investor group is interested in partnering with Mark Cuban to buy the Mavericks back from Patrick Dumont, the Stein Line has learned. A source close to Dumont told me, that's Mark Stein, the family remains excited about the future of the franchise in the Cooper Flagg era. Cuban first bought the team back in 2000, and Dallas immediately made the playoffs in each of the first 12 seasons after. But ever since Cuban sold a minority stake, it's been rocky, according to Stein. Dallas traded Luka for the Lakers with Anthony Davis, and Cuban himself said he thought the trade was a mistake. The Mavericks would get eliminated in the play-in last year, but then won the lottery and had Cooper Flagg fall into their laps. This season, after a slow start, the Mavericks fired Nico Harrison and dealt AD to the Wizards at the trade deadline. Now Flagg as a cornerstone to build around, the Mavericks can start a new era. We have to keep in mind Kyrie Irving as well. His status seems to be kind of recovering from his injury. And so I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Is this serious? Should we take this seriously? Or is this just an erroneous report and you guys don't think Mark Cuban is serious about this? And Matt, I'll start with you.
I think Mark Cuban genuinely loves this franchise, so it doesn't sound far-fetched to me. What I don't know is the current ownership remotely interested in selling it, because this was not very long ago that it was sold and that things changed. So I don't know. If I were in their shoes, I would probably want to wait and see and turn a prettier penny off of selling this franchise. I think that it would be. It's interesting to think about Mark Cuban returning because he's a passionate owner. He's very interesting. He's very eccentric person. He's a great personality to have in the NBA, and I know he still circles it, but I think where he's likely to have the biggest momentum is with public support, given how things have been in Dallas with protesting being pretty constant of the franchise itself and by the fans. I mean, if you want to reinvigorate and make that fan base happy, aside from, hey, you've got maybe the best teenager in NBA history in Cooper Flagg to this point, it's getting Mark Cuban back in the driver's seat of that franchise, I think would return enthusiasm in Dallas. So I can't speak to the credibility of this move. Maybe Alan has more insight there than I do, but the other thing I'll say is it's swept under the rug, but there was a lot of questions about leadership and administration during Mark Cuban's tenure, especially towards the end there. And that may have actually been low key kind of the reason that it sold. Again, I'm just speaking in hypotheticals here, but There was a lot going on behind the scenes that got swept under the rug before, certainly the Luka trade and even years before that, that left a lot of unanswered questions. Hopefully things have been figured out and justified, and the legal scene in the background, while the public has been sort of away from that storyline. But Alan, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I can't vouch for the credibility of the report. It certainly sounds like something Cuban would want to do. It would certainly signal that he's not going to run for president, which he's pretty much backed off on being political for a while now. The other piece to this, though, what I think is interesting is that, Patrick Dumont's not from Dallas. He's a Vegas guy.
Right.
So what you could see here potentially is maybe a franchise swap, and that the Dallas ownership group and Mark Cuban buy the Mavericks from Dumont, but then Dumont uses that money to pay the franchise fee for the Las Vegas franchise, which I think we're pretty assured of getting a Seattle and Las Vegas franchise announced over the summer. So that's where my head's going with this, where I think that someone like Dumont might actually want to have a franchise in Vegas.
That makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
And I will say, to the credibility, I mean, if Mark Stein is reporting and saying he has sources, I mean, he is one of the most connected reporters to that franchise. So in a credibility sense, if it's coming from Mark Stein, I mean, there's almost no better source that you could have.
Yeah, he's not an aggregator. He's a legit journalist with contacts throughout that organization. He's broken a lot of Dallas stories first before everyone else. I mean, I lived in Dallas and followed Mark Stein back in the day. Read his writing, way back in the day when there were still newspapers. So, yeah.
Justin, curious your thoughts too. I mean, would you want Mark Cuban back in like the majority owner seat?
If I'm a Mavericks fan, 1,000%. And I think with Mark Cuban, you see him on Shark Tank and you see him on these interviews on CNBC, another business channel. He has a very acute business mind, but also he loves this team. I mean, this is not an owner who is just, hey, I own this team and it's just an investment, I stay away. I mean, he loves the Mavericks. So it was very shocking to see him sell it. And I think his reactions to the Luka trade was very tempered. I think he was furious. I think he was pissed. I think he was irate with this trade, and I think he tried to keep it in. I think he showed tremendous restraint considering his past. And so I think that's kind of like, the last stone in really doing this. And also keep in mind, too, there's been tons of rumors in terms of, getting legalizing gambling within Texas, in which they do not want to do. And so if you don't want to do it, like you said, Matt, you take your losses and just go to Vegas and just do it, do the franchise there for the Dumonts. So
I want to just chime in too, and this is a weird thing to say, but look, hands down, the Luka trade was a horrible trade based on the return that they got. But I don't know that it's necessarily the worst thing that could have happened to the franchise. I'm not sold on Luka. This year he's been injured. He's missed time. He came into the season in shape, but it seems like he's been still struggling with conditioning. His defense is still not there. Cooper Flagg is the real deal. I am all in on Cooper Flagg. I think we talk about the face of the NBA. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But I think Wemby and Cooper Flagg are going to be the guys.
Yep.
So
interesting.
Alan, I'm with you here. I think, especially when you factor in the defensive side of the ball, which I'm glad you mentioned, there is a real chance already. I alluded to it earlier. I said, I think if you look at teenagers and the production that they've had in the NBA, Cooper Flagg is right up there at the tippy top of the pile, maybe the best we've seen in terms of the sample size we've seen of their games as a teenager and the actual production itself. And now we're at that point. He has that 30-point game streak that's been going. one of the longest we've seen in rookie history. So he's figured things out on the offensive side of the ball in the NBA too, which was kind of the concern when he was first starting this season. He's already figured that out, and he's going to continue to get better. He may be a better player than Luka when it's all said and done. And I think that is something that even approaching the draft and even at the start of the season, you would be laughed at if you had brought up that point. But I think he's shown it now that I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the potential is there. I could see it, of course, barring, health and those kinds of circumstances. But just if he's able to play, he may have a better career than Luka.
On the Kia rookie ladder, Cooper Flagg is first, averaging about 20 points a game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Con Knipple is second. We've talked about him and his season. And you brought up Luka, and I know we got to move on, but you guys brought him up. I got to say this.
Do it.
Considering how much he's struggling in Los Angeles, you would think, supposedly, arguably the greatest player of all time in some people's eyes. Do you think some of this is on LeBron? LeBron takes care of his body. LeBron has all his experience. Why is Luka? What is the disconnect? You would think LeBron would be a great mentor for Luka, and yet you mentioned all of these things that's going on in Los Angeles. What exactly is going on here? Alan, go ahead first.
You think Rick Carlisle would be a great coach for Luka?
Fair.
I don't. For once, I don't think the problem here is LeBron, and I don't think the problem was Rick Carlisle. So
interesting. Go ahead, Matt.
I think you have your max players play very, very little defense on the Lakers, and I think that's been the problem for a long time. Luka didn't solve that problem. Luka keeps the Lakers interesting for the future. Luka, even in an NBA that's offense heavy, Luka keeps them dominant. We see they're still not terrible in the standings, despite the clear flaws that this team has. But yeah, the Lakers are a mess. I did see, Luka is still, in a top 3 MVP candidate. So he's producing. Everyone, you see the near triple-double averages and the over 30 points per game. But this is something in this era, this scoring rate, this pacing where, Trae Young, he puts up numbers, but that does not tell the full story. Your offensive production now is inflated. Luka is an incredible basketball player, so I don't want to get too ridiculous here, but pairing Luka and LeBron together, I think, was flawed from the start, even more than we realized, and it's playing out that way. And I don't think LeBron, there's been good quotes, but I really don't think LeBron has genuinely been interested in being a mentor. I think in a way he wants to win. I don't know that he feels as being someone who is constantly mentioned as one of the greats of all time. I don't think he feels he wants to take a backseat to Luka, and why would he feel that way? He's been the king, quote unquote, for well over 20 years now in this league. He's still front and center on a lot of the marketing materials, etc. So that's tough. We know that sometimes stars don't mesh. A lot of lessons there from the 2010s and beyond, certainly.
His play doesn't prove that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think LeBron was a terrible defensive player, when he in his prime. I think it's pure motivation now. Clearly the dude doesn't care. At least on the defensive end.
That's been for several years.
Yeah,
though.
Totally.
That's not just this year.
Totally. And I think to that point with Ryan Ward, who we talked to, covers the Lakers for Sports Illustrated, they were talking about how much the fans are really fed up with LeBron. Do you think that resentment spreads to Luka? And with Mark Walter, I think, Alan, you were talking about his success with the Dodgers, I think in a previous In the Lab. Do you think he just trades Luka? Do you think, hey, this is not working, we want to win now, get this guy out of here? Do you think that's possible in the future?
Yeah.
Or let him,
yeah. Mark Walter has shown that he does not care about your feelings. Cody Bellinger, bye-bye. He you have to produce and bring championships, or he will move on from you and not care what the fan base says, because he knows that if they win, the fans will not care.
If I can just pump the brakes, though, I mean, we've talked about it for a while this season that we need that LeBron cap space to open up for the Lakers. I certainly think if Luka's getting traded, it's probably in like 3 seasons, something along those lines. You're gonna see an actual capable, and look, LeBron, you've had a great career. You're 41 years old now. You can't be a max contract guy and expect to be competitive. That I've said several times on our episodes. So get someone in there who is someone who's capable of being like a championship contender at this point as a running mate to Luka. See what that looks like before we talk about like Luka trades. But there's a lot to criticize. I think it kind of feeds off each other. Like you see the lack of effort, because defense is such a team thing, even more so than on the offensive side, that, you know, you see LeBron like not going into the paint and covering an assignment, or and then that bleeds over to Luka, and you have like poor Austin Reeves sometimes looks like the only guy really, really like diving for the ball and doing things like that. There are others too at times, but my point being, it all feeds off each other. And LeBron, you're that legend on the team. You are like highest in the rankings. You are the elder statesman now in your career. And I'm not saying it's wise for you to even like go to the floor all the time, but if we're seeing lack of effort, that just goes all the way through the roster there.
Yep, totally true. You guys have any other thoughts? We spent a lot of time. That's my fault on this first topic.
I got more thoughts, but let's move on. I'm sure Alan does too.
Let's get into this WNBA CBA update. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this because there hasn't been any developments based on what happened this past Sunday. The executive committee for the Women's National Basketball Players Association held a call Sunday to discuss the WNBA's latest collective bargaining agreement proposal, which arrived on Friday. The EC wanted to really understand everybody's point of view and get on the same page about what we were asking for. A WNBPA Vice President Brianna Stewart told CBS Sports in an exclusive interview Monday. The WNBA's proposal, the league's first response to the players' latest offer, which comes more than 6 weeks ago, didn't move much money-wise, Stewart says, but there are some minimum standard requirements that did come into play. That was important, Stewart added, because that means that the league heard us on things that matter to us. Notably, the league's latest proposal offers concessions on player housing and facility standards. First-year players and players on a minimum salary will be provided a one-bedroom apartment for the first 3 years of the CBA, while developmental players will be provided a studio apartment, a source familiar with the negotiations confirmed to CBS Sports. So, and it has this note here, the WNBA has provided housing for players since 1999. The most recent CBA teams were required to offer players a one-bedroom apartment or a stipend for housing cost. So, what do you guys think of this? I mean, I find what's peculiar is that we've been getting press releases from all the teams saying this season's going to happen. I mean, I've been seeing, hey, come to the first preseason game. Hey, come to the first regular season game. The schedules have been released. We haven't had the expansion drafts yet. And it's February 11th. March Madness is next month. If this spreads to next month, I mean, there's supposed to be the WNBA draft, the WNBA lottery. I mean, do you think this is resolved by then? I mean, I would think the heat is on to get something resolved here. Who do you think caves first? And Alan, I'll go with you first.
I think, I don't want to say cave, but it sounds to me from that quote from Brianna Stewart that the players are setting themselves up to say, hey, we got some of what we wanted. Let's go. So that's the direction I think this is headed. And I think it's going to be a crazy few months. It's going to be very much like post-COVID, lockouts everything's lifted, go, 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 go. So you're going to be looking at expansion draft, free agency, all happening within, the course of a month or something like that. And it's just going to be really crazy. Probably a lot of fun. And we'll have to see kind of what happens with it.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't remember your initial question, but I do think the players are going to come back to the table first to get this deal done. If it's going to get done, it seems to me, Alan, I agree with what you said. It's kind of like Breonna Stewart was selling a victory there in those comments to make it, even though I'm sure in closed doors, they probably don't feel like they got a massive win. It's certainly nowhere near the things that the players were initially asking. But I find it fascinating because if you look at Unrivaled in that league and just the reality of what happened there, let's be real. The league was set up by players, Breonna Stewart being one of them, to be supplementary to the WNBA. It was never supposed to be, hey, if the WNBA doesn't work out, we go here and we just do this thing. That was not the thinking in its conception. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. What's interesting is I think the owners sat and wait to see how Unrivaled was going to do. There was not much movement. There was kind of that stalemate in the negotiations of the CBA. They saw that, unfortunately, because of injuries, because of other things, the ratings suffered a little bit there. And I think that was where the players started to lose leverage on the business side of things in this negotiation. I think in what I've seen, and certainly I can't speak for everyone, it just seems like the players, not only on that side, but also in the court of public opinion, have lost a lot of leverage. Because I think their biggest leverage was sympathy from the public. When you look at if a season doesn't happen, if the players don't accept the deal, which for many players like triples or more their salary, then that is a huge hit to people, the players that do not have endorsement deals, like players outside of your Caitlin Clark, your Angel Reese. So I think when you factor all those things in, that's why my answer to your question, your original question there, Justin, would be, I think the players are coming to the table. I just don't think they have nearly any leverage at this point, despite the massive support that they get from media and, of course, several people that we talk to on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And Justin, I'd love to know your thoughts too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the unfortunate thing is Unrivaled so new, right? And new leagues take a long time to develop a following. And like you said, Matt, with injuries, and just it being a second year league and also a new concept. I mean, this is 3-on-3. Also, they have the 1 versus 1. I mean, you're on a network that took a huge hit. That's without the NBA. It's a TNT's in a bit of a transition here. So all those things, I mean, has resulted in a decrease in ratings. And I think, like you're saying, that leverage has decreased. I agree with you. But I do think this is not over. And I think I'm very curious to see how long this agreement's going to go. Because I don't think Unrivaled's going away. And I think just based on the concept and just how relevant it is, I do see it sticking around. I think you're going to see a lot more players, be interested in it. I see a Juju Watkins being interested in it. We've seen, Paige Beckers already, participate. And we've seen a lot of, great players from the WB in it. So I don't think this league's going away. And I think it's going to take some time to really grow. So I feel you, man. I'm in agreement with you. I do think this, due to just the momentum and just the expansion teams and everything, the clock is ticking, and I think that favors the owners in terms of what they want.
Well, and let me just kind of counterpoint or maybe thought experiment here. I do think there is a point where the salaries get to where on the ownership side of the WNBA, I do wonder if there's a point where they say, I want to protect my investment. We're going to have a clause in this next agreement that you can't play in these other leagues if you want to make, this much, or you want to have this amount of revenue share. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm curious to see if that's going to be a bargaining strategy of the owners, because let's be real, if Unrivaled went the other way and took off, I mean, this is a direct competitor to the WNBA. So why would I support you who has a conflict of interest. You are players set up this unrivaled league, credit to them for that. But if I'm your employer on this side, why am I going to pay you more money and support like my own competition in a sense? Now, granted, their seasons aren't overlapping with the way it's structured right now, but you know where they're going to take it. They're going to say if you get hurt and if you tear an Achilles in Unrivaled, let's say, then that hurts my product in the WNBA. I think, just to put one more point and then I'll shut up. I think the players are going to have more leverage once the WNBA owns more of itself. Like when we get this 16% portion of the investment, if they're able to buy that back, and then also if they're able to fully own theirself, I think that will bring more of the court of public opinion on the side of the players. I think once they establish that. Right now, it's just such a hard spot for them to argue for with how they've been subsidized by the NBA over the years. That's part of the thing that makes their leverage difficult to start from. And then, like we discussed, I just think it's diminished since we talked about this in October.
Yep. Alan, do you want to add something to that?
No, I don't know. Yeah, I think, Matt, you're spot on. And Justin, I think we kind of all agree that there's, most businesses have non-competes, obviously, in the corporate world. In this case, it doesn't make sense, but if you're going to, I think the players, if they want to, if the ownership is going to come back with like, you can't play an Unrivaled or you can't do this, then they need to push for a longer season and higher pay so that they don't have to. Right now, they have to. They don't make enough money. They have to spend their off season playing in Russia or playing in Unrivaled. So there's got to be some give and take there at some point.
And the good thing is those are things like a longer season, especially, is something that the league needs, as it expands. So there's kind of alignment there. But, going back and mentioning Cuban again, remember, he didn't want Dirk playing on Team Germany, and he loved Dirk Nowitzki and supported him in just about everything. So I can't imagine the WNBA owners, at least a portion of them, might not take a similar stance when push comes to shove.
If Caitlin Clark was playing an Unrivaled, I think there would be a huge push to put that clause in there, because she's the face of the W. So and if she sprain an ankle, a huge injury, I think there'd be a lot of momentum towards that.
And let's bookmark this, and we'll see where we are when these negotiations happen again, and if Caitlin Clark has played an Unrivaled, because that changes the leverage there in a sense. If she were playing games, we know that she is ratings gold. So we might be having a slightly different conversation here if that had been the case this year.
And we'll see next year, because this year she's recovering from an injury. Last year it was pretty much nonstop. She didn't have a break. So we're gonna see what happens this time next year. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one thing about Caitlin Clark, and then I'm happy to move on. And that's, did you all catch that she was live on the NBC broadcast the other day? And Reggie Miller was asked to do her player comp in the NBA. And he said Peyton Pritchard, and her face was just like, what the heck are you talking about, man?
Well, I found it very interesting because I think Jeff Teague's podcast, they were totally like the opposite. They felt like that was an insult to Peyton Pritchard.
Really?
They were, I thought it was like a pretty weak comparison on Reggie's part.
I would imagine Reggie is probably getting roasted on the social media side for that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Let's move on to the trade deadline and, reactions to a pretty active trade deadline. I'll save my comments for last because I'm going to go on a bit of a rant for the Bulls. And by the way, it's confirmed. We usually don't tee up future interviews, but I'm pretty safe to say this interview is going to happen. We're going to have Big Dave of CHGO, who covers the Chicago Bulls, on the show in a couple of weeks. And we'll dive into all the Bulls trade deadline reactions, specifically with him. He'll give give us his perspective on what went down. But you guys, Matt, if you want to go first, just your reactions to the trade deadline, most notably Giannis not moved. The biggest name, probably, arguably, James Harden. He goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers. A bunch of other side moves. What was your impressions of the trade deadline?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, Dallas is trying to erase the memories of arguably the worst trade in basketball history.
Yeah.
Even though, getting Cooper Flagg, that's just been such a nice safety net for them. But I'm going to focus on the Wizards. I think where I've come around on and where I've landed on the Wizards after some thinking, everyone kind of pokes jokes about AD going there, things like that. I think I understand where the Wizards are coming from, because in Washington, historically, you're not signing a Trae Young in the offseason. You're also not signing an AD in the offseason. So I feel like they saw these all-star caliber players and said, this is a chance for us to be interesting for a year or two while some of our younger talent develops. This is also a chance where we can flex any which way. Like, you want to tank, like we're going to talk about in later on in this episode. You want to tank? Hey, you've got AD. You can, put him in street clothes, as people say. And Trae Young, we know, his plus minus when he's out there, your defense has usually been in trouble. So you've got a clear path if you want to tank. If AD pairs nicely with Trae Young, which you would think with how Trae Young is able to distribute the ball, you might also at times have a competitive and interesting team. So I kind of think the Wizards made that move to be chameleons and decide what they want to do for the next couple years. We'll see how long AD sticks there, of course, though, because I know he has not yet extended with the Wizards. So we'll see if that truly happens. Alan, I'll throw it to you for any thoughts you have on that or otherwise on the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think that the Wizards, I get where you're coming from, Matt. It's just perplexing that, look, we can assume that Trae and AD are probably not going to play the rest of the year, giving the Wizards a good shot at getting one of those top 4 or 5 players. And we'll talk about that later when we talk about the tanking stuff. But the Wizards, beside the point, I think they're still an organization that's just stuck in mediocrity in some ways until they get that superstar young player. They just don't have that yet. I want to talk Harden because the Harden honeymoon phase is in full swing right now. It happens every time he gets to a new team. You see the fans of that team who hated him before, all of a sudden are like, we didn't see it. We didn't see it. We love him. I'm telling you guys, just wait till the playoffs. Tonight his home debut was a win for the Cavaliers. But he only had 13 points, but he did have 11 assists. And he didn't really take a lot of shots. So he was really about distributing the ball. So that's the kind of the phase of career he is. But I love this version of James Harden. It's fun to watch him hoop. It's fun for him to be in a new situation. I think he makes Cleveland better this year for sure. And so I think that's really interesting. I think I also wanted to just point out that essentially Luka Dončić was traded for Chris Middleton. And I just want that to sit in for the Dallas fans. Sorry.
Oof. So brutal.
Yeah.
It's so brutal.
Yeah. Justin, I was kind of curious about your thoughts about, and we'll get to the Bulls, but the Bulls kind of Central Division rival, the Indiana Pacers. What's your thought kind of the going for Zubac, and what's your take there?
I think it's a little bit desperate. I mean their last, which I think is been a huge shock this season. Considering the last season, I did not expect them to be the worst team in the league, even without Tyrese Halliburton. I think I like Zubac as a player. I think at this point, you need to pretty much try anything, throw something that sticks and see if it works. So I'm not going to really begrudge him for that. I just think it's been pretty surprising how much this team, I mean, you guys brought up multiple times about tanking. I just find it shocking that I don't believe the Pacers are the worst team, one of the worst teams in the NBA. That doesn't really compute in my mind. So I think with Zubac, I think it's an investment for, next year once Tyrese Halliburton comes back, in my opinion.
Oh, and he may be, I know he doesn't have the perimeter shot, but he may be just what they needed after losing Miles Turner last offseason. So
Exactly.
I think keep your eyes peeled. Like, we expected the Pacers to come back in a big way, but like Siakam is still playing really well. I know they're losing a lot. Look out for the Pacers next year. I mean, they might go right back to the tippy top of the East. Or if Zubac, I mean, he was like 5th in Defensive Player of the Year voting last season, I believe. They could be sitting pretty next year.
Yeah, totally agree.
Throw Darren Peterson into the mix. I mean, they're not going to miss Matherin at all.
Yeah, no, true. I don't have to spend too much time on this, but an unusual move. The Bulls were very active at the trade deadline. A lot of debate whether or not they're making good moves or bad moves. I think the biggest name they probably traded away, depending on how you would decipher, is probably Vucevic to the Boston Celtics. I'm actually happy for him. I think that's great for the Celtics. I think we'll see what's going to happen with Tatum if he does come back, but if he miraculously does return, I think Tatum's practicing with the main team, the main G League team. So if he does come back, you get Vucevic. I think, the Celtics can make some noise there, but, the Bulls trade away a lot of their future. I mean, Kobe White is gone. Dosunmu gone. So for a lot of draft picks, I see a lot of second-round picks here. And I think I remember you saying, Alan, that, like, how many great players have come from the second round of the draft? Really not that much. So I'm seeing a lot of second round here. Maybe you can package some of these picks for something else. But what I saw from the Bulls front office is they're tired of being mediocre. Well, this is a lot of mediocre moves, in my opinion. I don't really see anything that's for the future. And looking at the roster, Josh Giddey, he's kind of in that Vucevic category. I mean, he's probably will be an all-star, but is he going to be leading your team? No. I mean, Mac McClung is a Chicago Bull now. I mean, I don't know. You have Anthony Simons. I mean, he's been up and down. I think Buzelis, I don't really see him really growing to a top elite player. I don't know. I just think in terms of until the front office of the Chicago Bulls has totally changed, they're going to continue to be a mediocre team in this league. And I think seeing these moves, I think they're rather peculiar. We'll have to wait and see, but I wasn't really outraged, but just because the Bulls are already mediocre. So honestly, if it forces them to be horrible, that puts them, in terms of getting a decent lottery pick. So I guess I'm happy about that. But it's the same old. It's a lot of mediocrity, in my opinion, for the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, outside looking in, it seems like it's a bet on hitting a home run in free agency, like over the course of the next 3 off seasons. It seems like they're like, hey, we want to have a ton of space. If we can do anything to get Giannis or someone else here that would be like a clear max person, we could bring them in, and we could also bring in some other talent too. We'll have the cap space to do that. Curious to see, because the end of this season is probably going to get pretty ugly. Just curious to see what happens for the Bulls over the off season. Like, do they have an actual plan here and a move in mind, or someone to bring in mind, or is this just going to like be kind of a tanking season next season for the Bulls as well? Like, does this bleed into next season?
If I'm a free agent, why would you go there? I mean, why? What for? I mean, you've seen when the Bulls are actually contenders, it's a bunch of guys who are like their third-tier players that they're going to get maybe the 5th seed, maybe, if no one gets hurt. And this goes all the way back when they signed Dwayne Wade. Like, he's past his prime. I mean, this front office really hasn't been doing anything since when they got Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, and they got Carlos Boozer, and they got Jimmy Butler. That's the last time they made any kind of noise in terms of the roster. Other than that, it's been painfully mediocre since.
Yeah. And 3 of those players you listed were their own draft picks, Justin. So it's not like even, free agents were flocking to come to Chicago at that
Correct.
point. So
Exactly right.
And let's be clear, their drafts have not been really that great. I mean, I know people like Kobe White and Io, but I mean, I think those guys are great complementary players. But they weren't moving the needle.
Yeah. And I think in pro basketball, when somebody has potential. I mean, it shouldn't take you 5 years to develop into an all-star. There's those rare occasions, but mostly who's going to be a talented player and who's going to be a complimentary one. So we'll wait and see what
Prediction
happens.
time. There was a player we talked about who wants to play in Chicago, who didn't extend with the team he was traded to. Of course, Justin, I'm talking about Anthony Davis. So we will see this offseason, if he isn't extending with the Wizards at some point soon here. I am curious if he just makes that lateral movement all of a sudden this offseason. I know that would just be thrilling for you. But I don't know. It's in the realm of possibility. I'm just saying.
No, it's true. But honestly, it has a high probability of happening just based on his front office. They want to make a splash. Yeah, we'll see. Any other reactions before we move on to our main topic?
It's interesting with Utah. That move for Triple J, but then we're still like in tank mode. I don't know, that whole situation there. And at the same time, with this tanking thing, and I don't want to bury the lead too much here, but you have like OKC is like the model team and the most praised GM in the league, and that was built on tanking in large part, and just draft asset collection, and that's kind of what Utah is modeling after too. So that's like the strategy everyone watched OKC arrive to their spot at the top of the league, and so it's just interesting to see that unfold and see just kind of and wonder like what's sort of the thinking in Utah, because there is some real talent on that roster.
There certainly was talent enough to win a game the other night.
For sure.
Valid. It's true. No, agreed. Let's jump into our last topic. I think let's try to not spend a super amount of time on this, but I don't know we're going to be able to pull that off. Just based on the kind of the gravity of this last topic. We're near the All-Star break, and it's preview All-Star weekend. So we have this coming Friday, we have the Rising Stars, the Celebrity Game. Saturday, we have All-Star Weekend, and that's going to be the three-point contest. I think that's going to be the highlight of All-Star Weekend, to be honest. This is a killer field. Devin Booker, Knipple, Damian Lillard is in this, even though he tore his ACL and hasn't played. Am I correct here? I'm like, why is he in this three-point contest and a dude hasn't played? But I digress.
Dame time, baby.
Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray, Bobby Portis Jr., and Norman Powell. This is a killer field. So to me, this is, I think, the highlight of the weekend. You have Shooting Stars making its return. Team All-Stars Scotty Barnes, Chet Holmgren, and Richard Hamilton. Team Cameron is Jalen Johnson, Con Knuppel, and Corey Maggette. Team Harper, which is the Harpers, Dylan Harper, Ron Harper Jr., and Ron Harper Sr. And Team Knicks, Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, and Allen Houston. We have the dunk contest. Carter Bryant, Jackson Hayes, Kashid Johnson, and Jace Richardson. So overall, you have the All-Star game, and I won't read you the rosters, but I'll break down basically this new format. You have 2 USA teams, 1 world team. We'll play in a round-robin tournament consisting of 4 12-minute games, with the top 2 teams advancing to the night's final main event championship game. With this concept, and you guys correct if I'm wrong, I think a lot of the basketball world has been negative on this concept, combined with a lot of negativity towards Adam Silver. I think over the past couple of years, I would say this is the most negative I've seen fan reactions been towards Silver since he's been commissioner. His Q rating's been awfully high, and he's been getting hammered on multiple fronts. And the latest comes in what we teased earlier with tanking. And this took place between the Utah Jazz and Miami Heat February 9th, in which, Utah's trio was sat in the fourth quarter with the victory in sight. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues going on with this league right now, and I just want to get your guys' kind of feelings overall with just the NBA and how you guys feel about this league. Take it any way you want it in terms of tanking, just kind of the new media paradigm. You see some people complain about, hey, there's a game on Peacock, there's a game on ESPN, there's a game on Amazon Prime, game on ESPN, I can't keep it straight. What are your guys' overall kind of feelings in terms of this league so far? Heading into the break where it seems to be very negative. Alan, I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. So the tanking stuff, victory wasn't just in sight, Justin. They had a 13-point lead, and lost by 3, by not playing their best 3 players in the fourth quarter. I get tanking, and there's a whole thing about ethical tanking, right? Where like Oklahoma City or Houston, you just have young bad players, and you play them, and they stink it up, but they learn as they go. But it really just sits wrong with me a little bit. The tanking continues to go on, and they haven't figured out a way to make it more competitive in the middle. The other thing that I think is really bugging me is, the CBA between the NBA and the NBA Players Association is supposed to, at some point, a lot of the ownership, I think, didn't like the player movement. And we're trying to figure out ways to keep players where they were. And I think fans like that to a certain extent. And I'm not talking about the people like us who are on Twitter, on social media, excited about the trades and laughing and following along. Like, the fan base in a city likes some stability. And we've left that era far behind. So many people changed teams last week that I still don't have an idea where some people are playing right now. And I think that's kind of sad. Not only are you seeing like major people traded, but you're seeing like a lot of on the fringe moves that you generally normally would never see. You go back to the 80s and the 90s, and you saw trades for big players. You really didn't see these on the fringe trades of assets. And I think that's what's happened is it's become a byproduct of the CBA is that the trade deadline has become a game of asset management, getting below aprons, saving money on the tax. And I think to a casual fan, to somebody who just wants to support their team, I think it feels just weird and gross. They don't understand why that person was traded. They don't understand, a lot of times those guys who are at the end of the bench are fan favorites, and people cheer when they come into the game, and all of a sudden you can't even count on them being there. And so I think Silver, I feel like the league has kind of not been as strong as it was when David Stern was in charge. And I don't think that's a wild opinion. I think Silver has caved into ownership and caved. He just doesn't seem like he's got a strong vision for where this game can be. The other thing, and this is the last thing, this All-Star weekend, I mean, come on, East versus West. Don't muck it up. East versus West, but make the outcome matter. That'll push it. Make the outcome matter. Have home court be whoever wins the All-Star game. Make it matter. That's a simple fix. The other part on that is that he's got all these social media influencers coming in to do the All-Star stuff this weekend, and they're gonna put them over journalists as people to promote the game. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, Justin. It's ridiculous. I mean, they don't even know basketball. There's all these stories about these influencers have no idea what they're doing. They're like, they don't want to talk to somebody because they're afraid they might be a bad player. I don't know. It's just dumb. I mean, Matt, what do you think?
Damn, Alan. Somebody cool Alan off, because this man
Right.
is on fire. I got 2 points, 2 main points, and then I'll elaborate. First thing I want to say, David Stern, may God rest his soul. I really, really miss him. I really miss David Stern, and you touched on that, Alan. I think in the way that he could navigate the league and all the different parties involved that had to be negotiated with, man, we are missing David Stern. It's pretty apparent now he was a stronger leader than Adam Silver, and we're missing that big time. And I think that's one of the things that has caused erosion. I think another thing, more money, more problems. That's my second point. I think we are at a time, a lot of the media, including maybe sometimes myself, are guilty of thinking that the NBA, like making more money off of TV deals and things like that, means that the league and the product is in a better place. Those two things are not the same, and we have seen the product suffer over time. And at some point, maybe the deals will always continue to go up. Maybe some of that is inflation. I don't know, but you just can't tell me. And a lot of fans feel the same way I do. I really, in 2025, watching basketball, that's last year, compared to like 2015, watching basketball is just so much more compelling on so much more of a regular basis. And there are so many factors that go into that. And I don't want to bore you and our listeners and viewers going through each one of those points. But you can point to a number of things. I think a lot of people who fell in love with the game, myself being one of them, sees how this product has transformed, sees that, I can spend $500 to go see the Denver Nuggets and then maybe not see the players on that team and or the visiting team be there. Look, I'll narrow this down and then I'll shut up. I think you take all these factors in, and what you saw from David Stern, let's not forget, like, he blocked trades. He did things where he was like, hey, I'm the commissioner. This looks like a bad deal. Agree or disagree with me. I don't care. I think this is going to hurt the game, and I'm going to do it. And part of, I think, what he had more awareness of and more sympathy for compared to Adam Silver is the fan experience and the connection to the fans. I think there is just a massive rift between owners, players, and then down at the fan level. There's just a disconnect now. And I think All-Star Weekend, there is no greater symbol and example of that weekend in itself. And Justin, Allen, we've talked about it, like the corporate level stuff that is the focus of All-Star Weekend. Like it is just a blockade, like trying to keep fans out of that thing. So it's like you have this, fans put in all their effort, and like the NBA really encourages you, like, hey, vote for this player for All-Star Week. And then we, the fans who maybe took that time to vote for our favorite player in the hopes of seeing them, like, we're basically, you're not blocked in, but like, let's be real. If the All-Star game could come to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I would not pay to go see it, it just would not make any sense for me to do that. I would love to attend an All-Star game, but I'm a little bit priced out of that, and I know many other people are. I know many people share that sympathy, so I apologize. I'm ranting, but there's just a massive disconnect there, and it irks me. And right now, like, it's probably a good weekend for the NBA All-Star Game to be as weird and goofy as it is right now, where, like, Justin, you explaining the format, and if you went into it more with like, oh, you got to win this and then you advance to this, like, it's a good weekend for a format like that, because I can just watch Winter Olympics. I can, like, enjoy Valentine's Day, do that kind of stuff.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
NBA, I love you. I do. But man, we got to do several things here differently. And look, under strong leadership, like, Adam Silver could wave his hand like in a day, like with things like instant replay at the end of games that's driving fans nuts. Plenty of other examples of things you could point to. He could wave his hand and do it, but we haven't seen that happen. So I mean, you guys can already tell just based on my rant. I do think criticism is justified. I do think there needs to be changes to improve the sport. And with that, I will finally silence. My apologies. I let the cat out of the bag there a little bit. I'm calm, well-adjusted Matt again, okay?
Well, I feel you, Matt, and that's why I think it's irritating when I hear people criticize the NBA for being too political, because this is not about politics. This is about the product on the floor. And all those reasons that you mentioned, Matt, is the quality of the product that people are going to pay money for. And so I think with Adam Silver, I think he's really lost touch with what the fans want in terms of what fans want to see. And I think he's a big idea person. I think he wants the league to be more in touch with pop culture and not what's happening on the floor. Like what you mentioned, Alan, what you mentioned, Matt, is what fans really want in terms of what the NBA should be. I think what Adam Silver wants is globalization. He wants the league to be connected to social media. He wants the league to be connected to betting. He wants the league to be cutting edge. And those things are external to what the actual product is on the floor. And I think for years, what people have been complaining about is the season's too long. And I agree with Bill Simmons, the season needs to be shortened. And we have talked to many sports business journalists. They have said it's impossible. But I think that's ignoring fans and what they want. And I think with Adam Silver, he's out of touch. I think with that comment he made about, the streaming comment, I think that's indicative. He is out of touch with what the fans want. And I think you see that in terms of with LeBron, he is the face of the league. And physically, I don't think we can say he should retire because of what he's physically can do on the floor. I think he can present a lot of what he can do. That's based on what we saw in the Olympics. That was a motivated LeBron James in that Paris Olympics 2024. And as a result, we got some of the greatest basketball we have ever seen. And it wasn't even in the NBA. It was during the Olympics. So I think as a result of that, I think Adam Silver's responsible. And it's tough because he's delivering for the owners and they have, the richest media deal. But yet because of that, I don't think he's going to be held accountable. So, we can complain, but what's going to be the solution to this? Do you think eventually, could there be room for a new commissioner? Or do you think we have to just tolerate this with Adam Silver just based on, it's about money and greed and, gambling's becoming a lot more popular. The leagues make a lot more money off of that. And then with the TV deals, it's only going to, get exponentially more expensive. Especially with these new arenas and everything, everything's increasing in price, and that's going to benefit Adam Silver as he's able to negotiate a higher rate. So I don't really see him being ousted as commissioner anytime soon. Do you guys think so? Or
No. I mean, if Gary Bettman and Roger Goodell can keep their jobs for as long as they have, I think it would take some sort of like collusion, or if he's in the Epstein files, or
God.
or the betting stuff goes way, blows up in a big way, point shaving or something like that. That might endanger him at some point where he's a scapegoat. But no, you've seen leagues do not like to change commissioners. It's a sign of weakness. And you just generally don't see that happen unless they are completely incompetent. Like you said, Justin, he's making money for them hand over fist. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, well said. I mean, money talks, especially to the owners who I believe like it would be, the board of owners that would have to vote him out or remove him. And that's a tough thing to do when you're making money hand over fist. And like I said earlier, like the more money does not necessarily mean a better product. Sometimes it does. There was a period of time there, where that coincided, but it's different nowadays. And another thing too is that Adam Silver, overwhelmingly, like he had David Stern's blessing, so to speak. He was like the heir apparent. They knew and they wanted that smooth transition. Yeah. It's just unfortunately, it just didn't work out, I think, as everyone envisioned. And also, David Stern is arguably he's up there with the greatest sports commissioners of all time. That's a really tough act to follow, So, in a sense, like human element, I feel for Adam Silver a little bit, but at the same time, like, please, can you connect? Like, you should be able to filter, what is just clearly internet outrage and then what is clearly like your devoted, caring fans asking you, please, like, make this product watchable. Like, can we do something about how the travel rule is written in the NBA and what we're watching with guys taking like 5 steps? And then we have like Coach Nick on Twitter, who is brilliant and I love him and he's a friend of the show, but he's justifying, like, rightly so, by the rule book, like, hey, that Giannis play is technically maybe not a travel based on the rule. Like, okay, then can we do something to like simplify this and make this like sensible basketball again, that people can more uniformly agree on? I don't know. I guess the answer obviously is no, or it just falls on deaf ears. But it's a sad state of things. I don't know. And I can tell you guys, like Justin reading off what's coming in the All-Star game, to me, a lot of it, like, I think the coolest thing I heard was like the Harpers having a team. That's awesome. That's wholesome. 3-point contest, yeah, that's cool. Everyone likes, the money ball and all that stuff, but man, just overall, like big snooze for me. And I don't want to have to do research to understand like what the rules are in the All-Star game. It just, I don't know. It sounds like maybe a hot take or something like that, but
no, you're right.
I think there is a point where, okay, we're like really overanalyzing and overthinking this. Like, can we please just make this fun? And can we please also on the player side just have a genuine want to participate in this, which is also like why this format keeps changing over time. And again, it stronger direction, stronger leadership, I think, solves a lot of things that we're seeing.
I think so too. And I think his focus on expanding the league to Europe is a huge mistake when you don't have your house in order. Like, why are you creating this new NBA Europe when you have so many problems with this product?
And that's a good point. And those things that you mentioned, Justin, earlier, that you said very well in terms of the initiatives and the focus of Adam Silver, like your domestic NBA fans on a level, like, just really don't care about that. Like, yeah, I want the success of basketball. That's really cool if we get like a Serbian team that's playing and their community really likes them and all that. Great. I don't have a problem with that. But you're right. Like, could we just switch rules to be like FIBA basketball, which, as you pointed out, Justin, was much more entertaining over the Olympics? Like, that's a pretty simple thing you could plan and execute for next season, that could maybe drastically improve the product, and also prepare our players for the Olympic game, which they are getting closer and closer to losing, even with our top talent. I don't know. There's so many issues here, and I feel disheartened by it. I do think shortening the seasons, I side on not knowing if that's the answer, just because of fans like me who like the records and things like that. I don't know. And I understand the thinking about like injuries going away. I don't know if that even fixes like the load management problem that we have, or if it's just like, okay, now instead of playing 55 games, players are playing 45 games out of this. I don't know. It's hard to say. I know that would be why the effort, like the genuinely good rationale is, hey, maybe we can have players healthier and playing a greater percentage of these games they should ideally be available for. But I just don't know if that problem goes away with a shortened season. And then, like, for fans like me who I look at those scoring records and things like that, I don't know. There's a case that matters a lot too, and we just, I don't know, need to be smarter about rotations, or just face that players, make your money while you can. There are just more soft tissue injuries these days.
Yeah, it occurred to me is Adam Silver is the Tim Cook of basketball commissioners. Like Tim Cook, everything's running fine. There's
Agreed.
Making a lot of money, but there's not been any innovation that's been meaningful and built the fan base since the old commissioner.
Man, that's very good, Alan. That's very good.
Excellent.
Very good analogy there.
The other point I want to make is I feel like next year's All-Star game, it's going to have like Euro board game rules. You're going to have like a 20-page booklet explaining all the different rule sets for who plays who and when. So I guess it'll be fun for the board gamer audience.
No, that's an excellent point because you look at Apple's technology, a lot of their innovations are stolen from Android. I mean, in terms of something that they usually refine a lot of ideas out there, but a lot of it's out of touch with the main consumer, like with the Apple Vision Pro. I mean, we've had Brian Tong on here twice, and he's been a big proponent of it. I've tested it out, in the Apple Store. It looks awesome, but the entry level is to get into it is $3,500. I mean, you're going to reasonably, even if you can't afford that, you'd rather spend that money on something else. And really, that tech has not been really introduced to your casual audience. And I think with the NBA, it's very fragmented because I see some owners, like with Matt Ishbia with the Phoenix Suns, introduce like cheaper concessions. But yet, other owners that don't want to do that. And I think that would be a huge help in terms of having universal, I think that'd be awesome if you have cheaper concessions. I think even though if you have higher ticket prices, if you can justify the higher ticket prices, I think people would go. And I'm not saying, you should just jack up the ticket price for no reason, but if you have cheaper concessions where it's just like, hey, $1 for a Coke, $2 for a pizza, and if the main players play, I think you might get people to justify that ticket price if you make it worth their while. But if you're just trying to gouge them for everything in terms of concessions, the players don't play, t-shirts $100. I mean, do you really want to spend that money on that? And the product on the floor is mediocre. I mean, that's why like you guys were saying, you're going to see that erosion, take place over time.
So the product is the root, though. Like,
yeah, it is absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not going to pay like $12 for a hot dog or whatever, but people will get their butts in the seats, and some people will buy those $12 hot dogs if
that's fair.
If the product is good and like a worthwhile draw. And I know in modern times there's more distractions and there's more options and things like that. Like realistically, the NBA may have run its course in terms of being like the highest quality sports product out there, if it even ever was that. But I still think you could do things again just to make the product better. And maybe it's never like one of those seemingly like monoliths in the culture, because that's not how the culture is nowadays. But you can still get better, and we can get better effort than this.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think unfortunately where you're seeing with sports business is, people just being more greedy. And I think with Adam Silver, he has done that. And I think, you talked about those influencers. I mean, if the product was popping, I think it wouldn't be too much of an issue. But honestly, when, you see the Washington Post fire their sports department and you're going to cater your coverage to, like you were saying, Alan, these influencers that don't know anything to a product that's mediocre, I mean, how is that going to elevate the NBA really? Instead of, journalists that, we talk to on a regular basis who cover these teams, who have jobs, by the way, who are not getting paid to cover these teams and provide great coverage. Where's their credential? Where's their fly out? The covered All-Star game.
Yeah.
Or how do they get flown out to the people we talk to on a weekly basis compared to these influencers that, don't care, like you were saying now.
Well, yeah. And the other thing to bring up as far as like how out of touch I think Adam Silver is okay, we just watched Bad Bunny bring the house down. He's the number one streaming artist in the world. He played at the halftime of the Super Bowl. Got super high ratings. NBA All-Star game, we're getting ludicrous. I mean, come on, man. I mean, no offense, but he hasn't been relevant for like 20 years. They couldn't, I mean, they should have, I mean, Clips is right there, there are so many other artists. There are so many, other people who are very popular. It just seems like it's entertainment being run by someone who's woefully out of touch with the modern day person. So
yeah, common running theme of our discussion today. It seems like just that that out of touch element.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's tough to fix because because it comes from Adam Silver's side, and he's got a lot of power. He doesn't necessarily have to change, and the owners are making money. And if they're out of touch, but they're still like greatly profiting, I mean, what's the incentive here?
Yeah, look at the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they have been very profitable, mediocre for years. So, and same thing with the Rockies here. Worst team in baseball, but great attendance. I mean, there you go. Well, we could spend a bunch of time talking about this topic, but I appreciate you, Alan and Matt, just talking hoops before the All-Star break kicks off here. Before we go, one more shout out to our wonderful guests that we've had on in 2026. Appreciate them bringing their insight. Make sure you check out the archive on our YouTube channel. And if you want to give us an email, hoopsologypod@gmail.com. And we're available on social media, on X, and also on LinkedIn as well. Alan and Matt, you have anything you want to say before we say goodbye this time?
Yeah, Justin, is it weird now if I say enjoy All-Star Weekend, everybody? NBA, I still love you. I want what's best for you. That's why you're getting tough love today. And really, I do hope you enjoy it if you decide to watch All-Star Weekend. Nothing but love.
Enjoy the Olympics. Enjoy Peacock.
Exactly. We want to see what's best here, all right? Would love to know everyone's thoughts in the comments about like the state of things right now. Do you agree about Adam Silver? All that kind of stuff. Would love to read some of that on our YouTube channel if you'd be so kind enough to post.
Yeah, enjoy All-Star Weekend. Enjoy. Yeah, I mean, hopefully you're doing something worthwhile. So I'll be cleaning out my garage. So hey, that's something to do. So yeah.
Or watch some bobsledding or some figure skating or curling. That seems to be bopping. Lots of check that out on there. Appreciate you guys making the time. Thank you very much for checking out another episode of In the Lab, and we'll see you next time. Check you later.
See ya.
Later.